taught you to hate the color of your skin? Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Most of us blacks, or Negroes as he called us, really thought we were free without being aware that in our subconscious, all those chains we thought had been struck off were still there. And there were many ways where what really motivated us was our desire to be loved by the white man. Malcolm meant to lance that sense of inferiority. He knew it would be painful. He knew that people could kill you because of it, but he dared to take that risk.
He was saying something over and above that of any other leader of that day, while the other leaders were begging for entry into the house of their oppressor. He was telling you, build your own house.
Those of you that go back to last century, that was my famous opening, some 17, 18 years ago. Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. On Black History Month, of course, we go back to my hero, Malcolm X. Just yesterday was his assassination day, 52 years ago. I was a youngster and born and raised in Harlem, and I didn't know Malcolm. I didn't know about not eating pork and not fornicating and chasing women and being a decent human being.
So you didn't even go to church, did you?
I'd come out of church. I'd stopped going to church at 16, 17. But I was a man of normal, young man, following my urges, whatever. But Malcolm was a disciplined and turned from his evil ways and became a whole human being. And people that know him before and after relish in the fact that he was 100% loyal to Elijah Muhammad. And we need some of that sincerity towards ourselves nowadays. What do you take from Malcolm and his...
It's interesting, while you're talking about Malcolm, I saw a documentary over the weekend, I'm Not Your Negro, James Baldwin.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we've had some great productions in the last 2-3 months. Fences, Hidden Figures, and this particular piece, I'm Not Your Negro.
13.
And 13,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was
DuVernay's fantastic work, and I know she's up for some awards on that as well. You know, we don't need the accolades of the Oscars and the Emmys. We do need information to be disseminated. And looking at the documentary the other day, I'm Not Your Negro, on James Baldwin, and he's a figure that people have really forgotten about in the last 25, 30 years, but James Baldwin was a very cerebral individual. He left this country, moved to France because he was tired of the foolishness and the racism here. And then in the 60s, he decided that he had to come back home to his birthplace. In that documentary, he talks about Malcolm.
Well,
And
okay.
there's substantial footage on Malcolm, on Martin, on H. Rap Brown, and everything that was going on in the 60s, the riots in Detroit, in LA. But he really keyed in on Malcolm, Medgar, and Martin. M, and M, 3 M's. And his connection to these men. he came back to write about the history, to write about the struggle of black people. And they even they had footage showing him on Dick Cavett in, I think it was 1963 or 1965. A young Dick Cavett and a young James Baldwin. And he is cutting right to the heart and soul of the issue of race in this country, the issue of racism. And we can read and we can watch footage going back so many years, and the question is, what's changed? And effectively, very little has changed in the way the country is. Yes, we've had a black president, but the mannerisms of racism have changed. You know, it's morphed in different ways, and we have to just be alert to what's going on. You know, James Baldwin said, whatever I am, and however I perceive this life, it's because of what you all are doing to my people. And you can't blame us for the perception, because that has become our reality. But we really have to, as Professor Jeffrey says, you know, we've got to do a critical analysis.
Where are you, Jeffrey?
To do the critical analysis of what's going on. But that's a production I would recommend.
The racism today is in your face. You know, Donald Trump represents a backlash. We have to realize what's happened in the last 8 years. You know, we had a black president who was, my goodness.
Mature, intellectual,
I mean,
diplomatic.
I say it all the time, a blessing from God. I mean, I always look for an angel to come down and save America. A half black, half white, and a rational human being that was fair. And we've had that experience, and I think America abused that blessing that we received.
Greatly.
And what do we have as a result? A radical, racist, shallow-minded white supremacist? I mean, come out of New York. A hustler out of New York.
See, the notion that New York is not racist is to be delusional in and of itself.
It's a joke.
The Ku Klux Klan operates in Hempstead, Long Island.
Right.
It operates, and that's just across the Queens borderline.
Queens, right.
All right, I have a friend that took down a van with some Klansmen in it some years ago, and they tried to get him, but he got them. All right, he was a state trooper, and they had all their Klan gear in their truck. They operate out of the Hamptons as well.
Right.
We don't have to go to Mississippi, Alabama. They're right here. Looking at Trump's lineage.
And they're in New Jersey.
And in New Jersey, and upstate New York, and in Pennsylvania. They're all over. And
but people don't know this.
There was a report by the FBI 10 years ago concerning two critical issues: the infiltration of white supremacists into the U.S. military and into law enforcement agencies across the country. And my son, who was in the military at that time, alerted me to it, because being in the law enforcement arm with the Navy,
he ran into them. They
had the job of finding these guys and mustering them out of the military, because they don't want, as jacked up as this country is, they did not want white supremacists in the military learning those tactics, learning how to use these weapons and different strategies of military operations, and then turning around and going back into the civilian population to train other individuals. The same problem arose in police departments, where Klansmen, and we've known that for the longest time, I think back in the 1930s, a third of the Electoral College was comprised of Klansmen. But there are police departments which have been infiltrated in Florida and other states with members of the Klan.
Well, what about today with Banner, a known white supremacist in the White House? Now, we're talking today that I don't expect Trump to last 6 months.
No.
His first month is...
Well, we didn't expect him to get to the White House. So
well, I don't expect him to last 6 months at this rate. And he's causing the world trauma and everything else. And you can see that something's psychologically wrong with this man. He's a habitual liar, and we know that there's something going on with the Russian contact. It's so obvious. It's all about, they say, follow the money. We all know about this North Arctic deal that Exxon Tillerson, ex-leader of Exxon, made with Putin in 2014. But because of the Ukraine, that was squashed. There was sanctions made towards Russia because of this, because of the Ukraine invasion. So now Tillerson is Secretary of State, and that $500 billion deal, I mean, the initial deal for $500 billion, I can imagine it's much more than that, is possibly on the table again. So we can see that this is all about Trump and money, which is billionaires. You know,
the Ukraine is an oil-rich region. It was an oil-rich region where they got a lot of crude oil.
What about the North Arctic, though?
Well, that's another issue. But the Ukraine, you see, the Ukraine, a number of the ports that the Soviets were using to ship oil from were in the Ukraine.
Okay.
So when the people of the Ukraine declared their independence, the Russians said, oh, wait a minute, we can't let these people go because that's where the ports are and a lot of the oil is there. So that was serious money because there are certain fuels that the Russians make that we buy. Jet A1 and JP54, they're jet fuels, and we buy consistently from them.
But there were sanctions against that?
Not against that, just against
everything else.
The Soviets interfering. But see, this is, like you said, you got to follow the money.
Yeah.
You see, so we're buying jet fuel from the Soviets at unbelievable amounts because they're the ones that make that Jet A1 and the JP54 jet fuel. We need it for the military. We need it for commercial airlines. And they sell across the globe. They sell that fuel. So they were not going to relinquish that bounty, that mineral or the financial bounty that comes out of the Ukraine. And MSNBC is doing an interesting series on the Soviets and Trump.
How long is it going to take for all this to come out? Well, we know it's there.
There are a number of things that have been exposed in the last week. The 25th Amendment to the Constitution, which followed the Kennedy assassination, it says that if the vice president deems that the president is not fit to serve, doesn't say for what reason, just deems that the president is not fit to serve and has half of the cabinet in agreement with him, the president can be removed from office. Not a vote of the...
What's the chances of that?
Well, we don't even have a cabinet yet. We don't have a cabinet because a number of his people, there are 16 members comprised in the cabinet. I think 9 of them haven't even been confirmed yet. So we have to see who ultimately gets confirmed. But one of the things that O'Donnell was saying on MSNBC the other night was that the person to watch is not Donald Trump, but Pence.
Yeah.
Pence is very coyly.
He's making peace in Europe.
He's over there. He is the diplomat.
Yeah.
He is doing the things, he is doing the presidential things that Trump should be doing. Trump is running to Mar-a-Lago every other weekend or every weekend, you know, writing executive orders.
It looks like a setup.
If it comes to the point where they allow Trump to continue with his lunacy, once the cabinet is in place and Pence could start talking with people and see if he has a consensus of opinion, this guy's got to go.
But, you know...
Then under the 25th Amendment, he would be taken out of power.
Now, that's all well and good. We know how many elections were stolen. We can go back to 2000, talk about 9/11, what a lie that was. We can go back to Iraq and talk about what a lie that was. And we go back to the beginning of Obama's administration. We talk, we know that they planned and plotted to stop this man no matter what he did. And all the good things that he did are coming out now. That blessing that we received was abused, and misused, and as an end result, people are waking up to what we had.
There you are.
They suddenly found out there was nothing wrong with this. But racism led everyone down a blind path, and the lies that were coming out about Hillary. Now they find out that the Russians were behind it. These same people that voted for Trump are suddenly turning on him. And Trump is saying, well, no, those are nothing but Democrats.
And fake news.
And fake news?
So
now, the lunacy,
truth,
but his own people are going to turn on him.
That's what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening. Now, all this is just showing us that democracy does work. This is the revolution right in front of us. We're seeing all the, now Obama looks like the best thing since sliced bread.
Whole wheat or white.
Whatever, you know, and he's suddenly the best thing that ever happened to America. And people are becoming aware of this. When they see that their health care, suddenly all these old people are finding out, oh, this is the best thing. And these people don't know what they're doing. Look who we put in the White House. This nut. This man that can't even speak English properly.
I was listening to a lady at one of the town halls, I think with Mitch McConnell. And
I'll sit down
she
like,
said, yeah, I'll sit down.
I'll sit down like.
But one point that was brought out either at that town hall or another, somebody said, there are more people on food stamps in Kentucky than any other state in the United States. You see, and we
Did
need
they
to
expand health care in that state? No, that was Spencer's state.
Spencer's. Okay. But the thing is this, and you have to be careful of what they try and put on us. There's no way in the world we can be responsible for welfare fraud, and all this other stuff when we don't make up the majority of the population. We are only 17% of the population of the United States. There are more whites on welfare in New York City than blacks and Latinos.
Right.
There are more Russian Jews on welfare in New York than any group of people.
Russian
any group
Jews?
of people. Right. They don't even have to go down to face. They have their EBT cards. They use them in Israel. If they're in Israel, they can use them there. People don't know that, but they can. So our people need to look at themselves in a different way. We are not the white man's burden. The people in the heartland of America, through the Rust Belt, you know, we live in New York. I've had health care, I've had medical coverage all my life. My mother worked for the city, I worked for the city. Many municipal workers, we don't worry about health care. So, but across the country, a lot of people, and you've got to listen to these attacks on labor. Unions are a problem to a certain degree, but they are necessary. And there has to be a balance of the two. But these people don't have health care. I've watched footage of medical vans that go through Appalachia, through Kentucky, West Virginia. People don't even have a hospital near them that they can get to.
Right.
They have to wait for the medical van to come to their town. They line up the night before and hope that they can get service in the time that the van will be there. This is insane. So when people jumped on that Trump bandwagon, on that and watch it, they don't want to say Obamacare now. They want to say Affordable Care Act. They want to say ACA, because that's stripping Obama's name from everything. And that's what they do. They will strip the name of a black person from anything credible if they can and call it something else. So they want to say the Affordable Care Act. No, let's call it Obamacare, because that's what you were calling it for the last 4 years.
You know,
These people, the white people that don't have, and most of them don't, they finally woke up. The ignorance to think that your political party should take precedence over your own individual needs is sheer stupidity. They're now waking up. And also, there is a move against political parties, but forget the party, let's save the nation. That's what a gentleman said this morning.
We have to understand that these people have been brainwashed.
Right.
They have been told and sold a lie. And they actually want to believe this because they think things will be better for them if a white person's in charge. They believe that Obama gave away the store to black people. And then black people saying, what did he do for us? You're going to catch 22 here. I mean, it's amazing how this has come up. I mean, I've grown leaps and bounds since the election, because I mean, I was angry. I was upset about everything. But then I just saw this as a teaching, this is a lesson here. and what America is made up. I was so angry that those 62 million people voted for Trump. I couldn't understand that. I said, in your right mind that you believe that he was right? And then you get down and understand what it meant to them. Make America great again. Make America white again. Back to the days before automation. See, most of these people don't understand.
And they don't.
Half
Yes.
the jobs
Go
are gone
ahead.
because automation and the computer.
Precisely.
I mean, this is how you have to have. They're talking about going back into the mines and killing
Dig for
themselves
coal
in
and
favor.
black
and then
lung disease.
Trump comes in and puts a man in charge of the EPA that hates the EPA. He's got 14 suits against the EPA, and he's going to clean up America, all the rules and regulations, and Trump comes in here like gangbusters, throwing out everything good that Obama did. He's throwing the trash in the can. Oh, this is wrong. You know this man was, and look at what Trump did to divide this country. I'm just the fact that he talked about Obama the way he did. I mean, I just can't. In this world, I mean, this country doesn't see that stuff. I thought I've always got the positive note about white people and Americans as general. I think people in general are fair-minded. I don't think people are as racist as we think they are. I think I think they do judge a person by the strength of his character. Once you learn an individual, you can't go back to that biased way. Everybody can't be lumped in one little.
But we did. The country did. The country went
as
back
stupid
to
as I didn't think it
this
was.
anti-Mexican thing, the wall. Look at
All that's coming back to haunt him.
look
though,
at the
because it's
situation
not-
in the Dakotas.
Look at the situation with the white supremacists attacking Jews. People forgot the white supremacy was against Jewish people.
As well.
All right?
As well.
And the Jews were first, and we were just a secondary. I mean, but they were foreigners. And you forget that during the Civil Rights Movement, they were our allies.
Right.
And I worked for a company where they hired me to deal with the Jewish community in textiles, a Southern company. So, I mean, I actually experienced that. And they considered Jews had horns in the 70s.
They even
Down south.
All of the ignorance is dangerous. It is so
And when you see it,
critical.
and
I'm looking at the
experience it.
situation in the Dakotas today on the news with the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Trump was telling, we got to have these pipes made here in America and blah, blah, blah. Those pipes were made a long time ago. That deal
course.
was cut years ago.
Another
all right?
lie.
And he's not bringing any steel workers to make pipes. That's not happening. The pipes are already in place. As a matter of fact, they were made by a Canadian company. Here's the trick. They're made by a Canadian company, which is a subsidiary of a Russian steel company.
Oh, wow. That's
Which
right,
is
you missed-
owned by a Russian billionaire who helped finance and get Putin into office in Russia. Again, you got to follow the money. Then Manafort, who worked for Trump during the campaign last year,
Right.
he had his business partner was a billionaire in Russia and was also involved in setting up deals in the Ukraine when the Soviets took over the Ukraine. Paul Manafort. Now, they say they had no contacts with the Russians, but Paul Manafort was in bed with this billionaire in the Ukraine who stole substantial amounts of money, was held in Vienna. He was wanted by the FBI.
When
the
is all
same
this
guy.
truth going to come out?
Well, it's coming out now. The question is,
But
when
the
is the
Republicans
U.S.
control-
Congress?
They
Right.
control everything. You've got Sessions there as Attorney General. You think he's going to promote any of this stuff?
The FBI had a warrant for this
You think
guy.
we ever see Trump's tax returns?
3 years ago, the FBI had a warrant for that guy,
For who?
for the guy that Manafort
Sessions?
was working with, his business partner.
Yeah, I saw that.
3
I
years
saw
ago,
that.
they've been
I
trying to
saw
get him
that.
here. He was being held in Vienna.
Yeah, I
They
saw
wouldn't
that.
turn him over. Yesterday, they said, okay, the U.S. could have him. Coming down,
really?
coming down from the courtroom to the lobby of the courthouse, he was seized by authorities.
Russian?
No, from Spain, I believe it is. They arrested him on charges that they have against him, and they're looking to extradite him to Spain before he gets to the U.S. So now the U.S. and Spain are fighting over this guy.
Oh, wow.
But this all ties back into Trump. So you mentioned Jeff Sessions,
Yeah.
all right? Would Jeff Sessions launch an investigation and do an adequate trial against this guy, knowing that he has ties to Paul Manafort, who was tied into Donald
you know
Trump?
he wouldn't do that.
So we are looking at a menagerie of incestuous, fiscal incestuous relationships.
Good way to put it. We're getting screwed at the end of it all.
And the people
And
are.
that's the problem.
My prayer is
That's the
that
problem.
when the cabinet is finally confirmed and put in place, that Trump continues in the way he's going. And there was a psychiatrist analyzing Trump. He says, technically you can't analyze somebody unless you're in their presence to talk with him. But he said, everything I'm viewing over this last month and even during the election, he said, the man is not mentally stable.
No, no. And you might watch the first month of Trump on MSNBC tonight at, what time is it, babe? 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on MSNBC?
Oh, right, they are having that special.
They're having a review, and it behooves everybody to watch this and get a breakdown of this nut we have in the White House. And something is delusional about this man. I mean, and everyone can see it. Your eyes aren't lying to you, and your ears hear exactly what he says. You can see how he handles himself. This man is not right, and he's a liar, and he's in it for the money, and we always knew it. He'd be better off. I'm sure he feels he'd be better off if he had a loss. He was in total shock that he won, and we know the Russians were behind it. And anybody in their right mind knows that the Russians have no good for us, and they are in for money and greed. And when is America going to wake up?
They're
all you
playing
people
him
that
like a
voted
fiddle.
62 million people voted for this man, and he's not for you, especially if you're poor.
They're playing. The Russians are playing him like a fiddle.
Right.
And if the people remain vigilant, if the people remain on the backs of their congresspersons, they will understand next election, you're out, you're done. As a matter of fact, they should be out anyway. We need a purge of the Congress. A lot of the people that have been there 25, 30 years, they need to be gone. And this situation with Trump, they said yesterday, has sparked untold numbers of people looking to run for a political office across the country. And great numbers of women are running. Great numbers of women are confirmed to be getting together, preparing themselves to mount up a campaign to run for Congress or Senate in the subsequent elections. And it's going to be something to see whether or not, and the Democratic Party, they need to really figure out what their agenda is going to be.
Yeah.
This is the time to really strike a blow, seize control of the Congress, and bring this country back to some normalcy.
I think a lot of these 62 million people that voted for Trump are going to see the writing on the wall.
Oh, they see it now.
They see it now, and they're going to see what benefits that we had with somebody that was fair-minded like Obama. I think they're really seeing through all this garbage, and they're waking up from the brainwash. And I think we'll have a revolution in this country that we've never seen before. Because I think there's a right mind, because we have television, everything's being exposed. I think the truth will prevail, and God is in this. I mean, this is a lesson to all of us. Just keep the faith, and the truth will prevail. All right? So now, it's Black History Month, and I want to go over my peer, a guy that I grew up with trying to be like, a boxer. I mean, he's 10 months younger than me, and I was a boxer when coming up. Everybody boxed in the 50s, My brother was a boxer. Matter of fact, the reason I had started boxing, I was 11 years old.
He was beating you up?
He got me in the corner, and he just knocked me out. And I said, well, he said, come on, you're going to have to go box. So he took me over to the Bronx to the PAL, and I learned how to box. I didn't last too long. I lasted about a year, but I wasn't mean enough to really. I didn't want to
hit somebody.
I didn't hate people. I'd rather go out and work and make money.
Right.
So that's when I started selling newspapers and going out in those days. We're
They
talking about
papers didn't hit back
1952. but who we're talking about is Muhammad Ali. So run this video, and this is Muhammad Ali, and none of them are my heroes.
Louisville,
my brother.
Kentucky. The Louisville Slugger.
Yeah, the Louisville Slugger.
I will not go 10,000 miles from here to help murder and kill another poor people simply to continue the domination of white slave masters over the darker people of the earth.
Your freedom. Well, now, well, she makes herself look crazy. Talking about I shouldn't go.
I work for the government, for part of the government.
I work for God.
For my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight you? We have been brainwashed. Everything good and of authority was made white. We look at Jesus, we see a white with blonde hair and blue eyes. We look at all the angels, we see white with blonde hair and blue eyes. Now I'm sure if there's a heaven in the sky and the color folks die and go to heaven, and where are the colored angels? They must be in the kitchen preparing the milk and honey. Even Tarzan, the king of the jungle in back Africa. Such things as movies, commercials, advertisements, endorsements, and even the heavyweight championship of the world. This is all there for me if I will only give up my belief, if I will only deny the honorable Elijah Muhammad and the truth that God has given to me.
Why should me and other so-called Negroes go 10,000 miles away from home here in America to drop bombs and bullets on other innocent brown people who's never bothered us?
We believe in obeying the laws of the land. We are taught to obey the laws of the land as long as it don't conflict with our religious beliefs. Whatever the punishment, whatever the persecution is for standing up for my religious beliefs, even if it means facing machine gun fire that day, I will face it before denouncing Elijah Muhammad and the religion of Islam. I'm ready to die.
Muhammad Ali has just said, we are all victims of the same system of oppression, and even though we may have different religious beliefs, this does not at all bring about a difference in terms of our concern.
One more time, who's the champ of the world?
Man. Great man.
Now you have to understand, I was just a few months older than this guy, so this is my idol. And I and my family, I was considered Muhammad Ali, you know, because I went out and did all the daring stuff, you know. I joined the Marine Corps and everybody thought I was crazy.
Yes.
When I joined 1960, you were considered insane if you joined the Marine Corps. And I went and did it because my father was a disciplinarian. I mean, he was hard on me. Yeah, I mean, that's part of my makeup now. And he always taught me fair and be honest and don't be afraid of anything.
Right.
And he left, he was, I mean, my father hated white people. Because he went through an experience when he was 12 and he had ran around, he was from Alabama. So you can imagine Alabama down in those days. And Jack was a trip, boy, a tough man. I mean, he was so tough, he chewed nails. Yeah, I told you the story about my father had a girlfriend after my mother died. His son was a junkie, and he came up to the house to try and rob my dad. My dad was 65 years old, and he came up there with a knife and tried to stab Jack. Jack grabbed the knife, broke the knife off in his hand, and bit the tip of the guy's nose off. Okay.
He was hungry?
No, he was just mad. He was angry. I mean, this is But he was 65 years old and we lived on the 5th floor. He ran the stairs all the time. And he was a presser.
Oh, in the
all
laundry.
Right?
Yeah,
and he
Dry
pressed
cleaners.
clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the main thing. That was a good job back in the day. I mean, we owned a tailor shop, so he pressed the clothes. He was a good presser. Taught me how to press. That was my first job was pressing clothes. So that was and Muhammad Ali was like my brother. And he taught me to, I went in the Corps and I boxed in the Corps. And nobody called me names because I stood up and I was a proud black man. And I thought it was ignorant, all the stuff that was going on. But you come up to today, and it's Black History Month. That's why we're talking how we were raised. Graham's got 20 years on the police force. So,
well, I think back, we're still talking about New York.
Yeah.
The first time I was shot at, I wasn't a police officer.
Oh, okay. Well, you're in Brooklyn.
See, now you know the difference between Manhattan and Brooklyn. I was in Brooklyn. And we lived on the eastern edge of East New York. We moved from Waiona, which is near Pennsylvania Avenue, out to Pine Street near the county line of Queens. And my brother and I were the only black guys that would walk up and down Pine Street. We lived on Pine Street. But Russell and I were chasing two guys that had robbed an old man on Linden Boulevard. And we were just about to them. And I heard a pew, and then I felt the impact. And I was struck on the left side of my head. And I turned around, and there's a white kid standing in the doorway of a building with his gun in the hand. It was a .22. And I said, Russell. He turned around, and I just ran to this guy. And he was so shocked that I didn't run away. He quickly slammed the door. And we tried to break the door down and get in the house. That's how crazy we were.
Right.
But I had a big knot on the side of my head. That bullet hit me just, a .22. Bobby Kennedy was killed with a .22.
Was that a .22?
Yeah, .22. And a .22 is a high velocity round, but it has a very high ricochet potential. So it hit me at the right angle. It hit the band. I had on a black beret. I remember I was about 19. And it hit the band of the beret. I had a knot the size of a marble on my head. The next time, I'm coming from a friend's house in the Cypress Hills projects, and I'm leaving the projects, crossing Euclid Avenue, and I look for the traffic. It's a two-way street, and there's a guy standing with a Remington rifle. I'm like, that's a nice rifle. It's about 9 o'clock at night. And then I look to the right. I'm stepping off the curb. I look left again, and he's leveled off. He's about 35, 40 feet away. So I make a quick turn, and as I turn, the first round traces past my ear. I can hear it go by. So white people for me, I know about white people. I went to school with white people. East New York was a predominantly white neighborhood when I was growing up. But your father, like my father was done with this country in 1953, and we were moving to Liberia. He was done. He was done. He was in Africa during the war. He served under Patton, but he was in Africa during the war. I made a lot of contacts, and he found family there. So we were leaving here. My father was tired of it, having been raised in Georgia, shooting it out with the Ku Klux Klan in Georgia. Just tired of the crap, But my father suddenly died in June of '53, so we wound up being here.
Damn.
But, you try and maintain a level of humanity.
Right.
You try and maintain, even looking at 13.
Yeah, that's
looking at Hidden Figures. Looking at I'm Not Your Negro. And every other movie that you can watch. Remember The Liberation of L.B. Jones back in the 60s?
No.
Oh, check that movie out on YouTube. Roscoe Lee Brown. But living through this stuff, there have been times, and I credit Muhammad Ali for taking the stance which he took.
Yeah.
I took the same stance after signing my contract with the Army in 1968, I believe it was. And I decided I would not serve. I said, I'll go to prison, but I would not serve. But it was very enlightening to see Muhammad and Martin Luther King standing together.
Yeah, that was good.
And that was the turning point in the war, because Martin stepped out of civil rights and went to human rights and spoke against the war. It affected a lot of people's pockets, DuPont and all the other companies that were making money there. But we were destroying a region of the earth solely for rice production. By depleting that region of rice, U.S. could become the #1 rice producer in the world. We did it again when Bill Clinton dropped the price of rice in the 1990s and bankrupted the Haitian economy. The Haitians were coming out of the pit of despair, because when the Haitians received their independence, the first group of people...
That's something else that they blame Hillary on, isn't it?
The first black people to get their independence in the Western Hemisphere, they defeated the French long before the U.S. got their independence. The French filed for reparations because of what the war cost them, and forced the Haitians to pay it back in gold, which they did. And the U.S. was also involved in stripping the French treasury of their money with Citibank in 1921. But it took over 130 years for the Haitians to pay that debt back to the people that had oppressed them. So by the time Muhammad Ali and Martin Luther King have come together, and they're literally telling people, this is inhumane, this is immoral, it's amoral, it's something that should not be done. It shows you the depth of humanity in this guy. You cannot stand against truth. I don't care who's putting it out. I don't care if he's a Muslim, if he's a Jew, if he's a Christian, an agnostic, or an atheist. You can't buck the truth, you know? And the truth doesn't need support. It stands on its own. In time, it all comes out. What you do in the dark, my grandmother said, will always come out in the light. So it came to bear. Everybody, they hated Muhammad Ali. They took his title from him.
Yeah.
You know, but he came back and did what? He got it back. He came back and won the fights that he needed to win to be the heavyweight champion of the world.
That's a fairy tale there. As a matter of fact, I might make one point, whereas when he died, he said everything else shut down, but his heart continued to pump half an hour after everything else had shut down. Shows you the power of his love energy. I wish I had that clip to play. I played that once before. But I want to go back to Malcolm. And we play this piece all the time. The only reason I play this piece is to show what kind of important it is that Obama, what the legacy of Obama really was. And let's show Malcolm, second piece on Malcolm, where he was at Oxford Union, where it's the end of his life, because yesterday was his 52nd anniversary of Malcolm's death in the Audubon Ballroom. Matter of fact, I was there last night with the family, and they had a panel. Maybe I'll show some of that footage in the future. But Malcolm was even more powerful than Muhammad Ali. Malcolm turned around several times, and we'll see this piece here where he decided that he worked with anybody. Now, and this is the point now that we're at with Donald Trump as president. We need to work together no matter what your color is, no matter where you come from or who you are and what your past has been. But all people need to get together and rile up to, this is the land of the free, the land of the opportunity. Let's stay true to what the paper said. All right, just play this one piece by Malcolm.
Passingly, about a man named Shakespeare. I only read about him passingly, but I remember one thing he wrote that kind of moved me. He put it in the mouth of us, who said, to be or not to be. He was in doubt about something. Whether it was nobler in the mind of man to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, moderation, or to take up arms against the sea of troubles and by opposing, end them. And I go for that. If you take up arms, you'll end it. But if you sit around and wait for the one who's in power to make up his mind that he should end it, you'll be waiting a long time. And in my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and a better world has to be built, and the only way it's going to be built is with extreme methods. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth. Thank you.
That's it. That's it. As you see, he said, now this is a man who came out in the beginning that all white people were devils. And he learned throughout life that white people weren't all devils. Right. Now, we've got a devil in the White House. This is quite apparent. Ain't no doubt in anybody's mind. Now, we got a real devil in there. Now how come we as a people, as human beings, we have to be human about this? Never mind what color you are. We have to be human about this and take it all in hand, and this country become great again by getting rid of Donald Trump.
Yeah, the Bible says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. So what is motivating Donald Trump is not the Spirit of God.
Money.
See?
All about money.
And you look at the ancestry, look at the family line. His grandfather was a pimp. He ran a brothel in Canada.
Right. That's right.
He not only pimped women, but he pimped children. He was into child sex slave market.
Right.
All right, and that was in 1895. He left Germany, didn't notify anybody, came to Canada in the Klondike, set up his brothel.
Where'd you find that from?
I did my research. He made $500,000
but that was
between
on television, wasn't it?
1895. I don't know if I was reading this a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
He made $500,000 between, I think, 1895 and 1898. He went back to Germany, and they asked him, "Where have you been?" "No, I went to Canada." "With whose permission?" "You're supposed to be in the service," because in Germany at that time you had to serve a certain number of years in the military.
He was AWOL.
He never joined. He never went into the service.
He never committed.
So they told him, "You got to get in the service now." He said, "No, I don't want to do that." And they said, "What do you mean you don't want to do it? You have to serve the motherland."
Right.
He was kicked out of his own country. He filed a petition to stay. They said, "No, get out of here." So he came to the United States. He had $500,000. Can you imagine what you can do with $500,000 in 1900? So while the grandfather is coming across on the ship, the grandmother was pregnant. So by the time they get here, I don't remember if it was during the passage or right after arrival, Friedrich, the grandfather, had his first son, Frederick. Frederick is Donald Trump's father.
Wow.
And Donald Trump's father is involved with the Ku Klux Klan here in New York.
Yeah,
he's involved in discrimination and housing and other things. And Donald Trump is formed in the womb of this environment, and he's laughing with his father. He's in agreement. No, we don't rent to those people. We don't rent to this type, blah, 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 laughing and carrying on. So this guy is not going to become presidential at age 70.
That's it.
He's not.
He's a lowlife.
All right? I'm not changing at my age. You're not changing. We are who we are at 70. So this man, and just seeing the statements that he was making with regard to women during the campaign, or the statements he made in years past, looking at everything about him, we know who he is. So a few things. Again, we're wrestling against a spirit. Those of us that know, worship, believe, we need to pray. And after you pray, you get involved in making sure that your congressperson knows, your senator knows. For every letter they receive, every email, they look at that as like 500 or 600 people. So if we're sending letters, not only to our local, but you can send an email to any congressperson, right? We have Cummings, We've got congresspersons and senators all over the country that have been mobilized. And I'm sure that what will happen in the next few months, we will see Democrat, Republican, and independent members of the Congress coming together to save this country from Donald Trump.
Give me a roll-in, a real short one, while Bill comes on the set. Give me a roll-in. I'll be right back. We'll be right back.
More and more black pilots were proving their ability to fly, but the U.S. military will not let them fly for their country.
The Negro is physically qualified for combat duty, but he is by nature subservient
and believes himself to be inferior to the white man. He has not the initiative and resourcefulness of the white man.
African Americans in military were only allowed and relegated to subordinate roles, cooks, cleaners, etc.
But just before the outbreak of the U.S. entry into World War II, you have blacks who are saying, wait a minute, and we want to fly, we want to participate. A black fighter pilot seems to go contrary to the notion that African Americans are inferior and that fighter pilots are the best of the best.
Nazi Germany represented racism on a monstrous scale. In America, black leaders put pressure on the government to prove its founding principles of democracy and justice for all.
So what they decided to do was to create an all-black base and train an all-black squadron.
That's good.
Base.
Damn. Glad that went off early.
We're on.
Welcome back. Welcome to the show, Bill Perkins.
I have to call you back.
Just won the city council seat. He's a little late, but and it's not Dr. Jeffries. Jeffries usually does this too. I'm so used to. Professor Jeffries does this to me all the time. He shows up 5 minutes before the show ends. But welcome, welcome. I know you were tardy, but that's glad to see you here. Welcome, congratulations, my brother.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm tardy.
All right.
But I'm happy to be here.
Well, you're working. You're working.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of work.
Tell us what's
especially
happening.
in the beginning. Well, you know, we just got reelected to serve
so
in the
what is it going to be
council.
like coming back here to the city?
It's going to be exciting. It's a good time to be back. We have a different environment.
Okay.
And you know, Bill de Blasio is the mayor. I look forward to
Okay.
helping him govern the city in a what I would call a progressive way.
Okay.
And addressing some of the very fundamental challenges that many of our communities are experiencing, especially in terms of affordable housing.
Okay.
And I mean affordable as it relates to what's in the pockets of the people that need it, not necessarily as it relates to the pockets of the people that don't need it.
Right.
Okay. And sometimes the word affordable is a misnomer, because what's affordable to you is not affordable to him. And we want it to be affordable to him, not just to you, so to speak. And so we're trying to redefine it in such a way that affordability opens the door of opportunity for those who really need it in our communities. And
How can you help us at Esplanade Gardens with the
you have
struggles?
to tell me what specifically you have in mind.
Well, you know, they're trying to privatize, and we need help from the city to fight against management or, you know, getting people on the proper people on the board or getting the proper information
I'm
that
not
we
clear
need.
what exactly of those three things you just pointed out.
Well,
we can
all of
weigh
them
in
are a
on.
problem.
But if you invite me to participate in the discussions with the tenants, those who live there, we can strategize in terms of what's in their best interest and how to make that happen. But I'm not clear of the details. I know that there has been some controversy about where Esplanade Gardens is going. There's some people who want to move it in one direction, and maybe some who are not as well off want to move it into another direction.
Okay.
So I have not yet been contacted to sit down with the leadership of either side to help provide some support.
Okay.
I assume they sent you here with a message.
No,
to invite me, since that's the first thing.
No,
that
this
came
is
out
all
of your
my.
mouth.
This is all my doing.
It's all you're doing.
All my. All my. I don't represent any
I live in
group.
Brooklyn.
You live in Brooklyn. So
I'm
this is your
representing.
doo-doo.
I'm representing my friend Bill Perkins. He's now in a position that he can help me out with my
I've
problem.
always been in a position to be helpful as long as I've known you.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all in a position, more or less, to be helpful, whether we are elected or not. But in this case, all I'm saying is, whatever you need me to do, just let me know.
All right.
It would have been helpful to be invited before the show.
Of course.
Because then I would have preferred to come with a report on what it is that you call.
Well, we're just starting. We're
Okay.
just starting.
No, I'm just saying that whatever has been going on didn't start just now.
Right.
So whenever it started, it would have been nice to know.
Okay.
Then I could have got involved earlier.
All right.
And then when we had the show, we could report to the community on the progress that we made on the problem. But that being said, I'm anxious to get involved.
Okay.
So please, don't
Will
hesitate
do.
to get in touch with the office and schedule a meeting for me to come to.
All right. Beautiful.
Do you know which committee you'll be serving on as yet? I know
We
it's
haven't
kinda
quite made those decisions.
Land use?
Well, land use is important, but that process has not been confirmed as to what committees that we request that we'll be on. But obviously, there are a few committees of particular interest that I wouldn't mind being a part of, land use being one.
Well, what would be your chouse?
It's just said land
being
use.
one.
Of course.
I've been involved with governmental operations, housing, economic development, education. Any of these committee opportunities, from my point of view, is worthwhile.
Okay.
You can serve the neighborhood with any of these.
Okay.
And even above and beyond the committee assignments is what you bring to the job anyway.
Yeah,
Because having been in public service for a while as an elected official, the committee assignments give you somewhat of an opportunity to develop an agenda of activities and services or legislation and budgetary initiative that you want to pursue. But there's work above and beyond that is also involved, just in terms of your presence in the neighborhood, your support of things that have nothing to do necessarily with the legislative body that you're serving in, but very often the faith-based community or some of the other activists in the community are looking forward
10
to
seconds.
some other, support.
Thank you for having me. Welcome home. God bless. Power to the people. Amen.
As always. As always.
The God in me loves the God in you. Stay tuned.